Hey, how's it going, guys? And we're back with more Warhammer 40K lore. If you're new channel, welcome. We're gonna be checking out another video by More Lore. So shout out and credit goes to More Lore for this video. So we last time we checked out a video that talked about every single Primarch, all 18 Primarchs, and I think he kind of dived into the other two that were wiped out. So now we checked out the Primarchs. However, what makes them so unique and unique besides, their tall form and their armor and like their stories, is also their weapons, because each and every single one of them has a unique weapon that no other Space Marine wields, I think. So we're going to be checking out every single Primarch's weapon and seeing what makes them unique, their capabilities, and maybe their weaknesses or things like that. But so far, what I've been seeing in like some of the Primarch's weapons, like the lion and sanguineous. I hope I said that correctly. Most of them are like swords. Some of them are like firearms, and some of them like the Night Lord. What's his name? Conrad. He had like some sort of like Wolverine claws. So, I'm really excited to see like what they can do and maybe how they were created, like how did they get those weapons as well. So without anything else, let's just jump right into it.
In a galaxy where war never ends, the might of a warrior is measured by the weapons they wield. Nowhere is this more evident than with the Primarchs, demigod generals of the Imperium, each armed with weapons of unimaginable power. From swords that can cleave through reality to hammers that shatter mountains. Today we are diving into the legendary arsenal of the Primarchs. Lionel L. Johnson of the Dark Angels has used many weapons across the ages, his arsenal shifting with the tides of war and treachery.
He's my favorite Primarch.
His first recorded weapon was the Wolf Blade, an ancient chainsword that was treated very much like Caliban's Sword in the Stone, with no one able to use it due to its weight. Clearly, it had been a lost relic from a time when Caliban had been part of a larger human empire, and when the Lion proved he could use it, his leadership of Caliban's knightly orders was assured. But that changed once the Lord of the First Legion was reunited with his father. The Wolfblade was safely put into the Lion's personal armory, and he was given a new weapon. This was the Lion Sword, a masterwork made by the Emperor's own armorers, its edge capable of igniting anything it struck. Even the war gear of his Jean brothers was not impervious to its fury, as Conrad Kurz's Nightmare Mantle once learned firsthand. He used this weapon for the entire Great Crusade and much of the Horus Heresy, until Guilliman destroyed it. Guilliman took offense to the Lion's brutal suppression of a rebellion on the ultramarine homeworld of Macrogge and snapped the blade over his knee as punishment. Without his amazing power sword, L. Johnson returned to a familiar old relic, the Wolfblade, which he used for the remainder of the heresy. But that is not the end of the story, because when the Lion returned after 10 millennia in the Abyss, he did so with a new weapon. Now he is armed with Fealty, a towering power sword forged as a testament to his unwavering devotion to the Emperor. But even more legendary is the relic upon his arm, the Emperor's own personal shield. An artifact capable of withstanding and even banishing the might of the demon Primarchs, which Angron learned the hard way. Before his gradual...
So the Lion had 3 swords, the Wolf's Blade and Fealty and the... crap. I was like taking it all in. I'm so sorry, guys. So one sword got destroyed, so he has multiple weapons, but how did he get the Fealty? Like, did the Emperor's personal armors like build that as well? But also on top of that, I didn't know that was the Emperor's personal shield. That is so cool. But if you guys know how he got the Fealty, let me know in the comments. Next, let's get into Fulgrim.
Slide into heresy, Fulgrim shared a very close relationship with his brother Ferrus Manus of the Iron Hands, and the two exchanged weapons that they forged for each other. Fulgrim made his brother a warhammer named Forgebreaker, while Ferrus gifted his perfect brother an elegant power sword named Fireblade. This weapon, capable of generating immense heat, remained Fulgrim's chosen weapon for most of the Great Crusade. Alongside it, he wielded Firebrand, a Volkite charger pistol. Fireblade was the perfect weapon for a duelist like Fulgrim. Light, well-balanced, although perhaps not as powerful as something like the hammer he had made for his brother. Meanwhile, Firebrand suffered from a Volkite weapon's usual lack of range, but its beam configuration allowed for the sort of movement in combat that Fulgrim was known for. Here we see already that Fulgrim chose his weapons to showcase his ability rather than as efficient tools of war. But despite this, they would serve him well, until he found something more seductive. During the cleansing of Laren, Fulgrim claimed a strange silver sword from the alien ruins. He set aside Fireblade in favor of this newfound weapon, not realizing that it housed a powerful demon of Slaanesh. Slowly, the demon began to whisper to the Primarch, seizing on his insecurities and driving him to greater displays of superiority and arrogance.
I remember that from the Warrior Tier video, like how he was corrupted by one of the Chaos Gods.
Of course, even a demonic sword wouldn't be enough for the Phoenician, and he actually ended up swapping weapons with Ferris when the two battled in the Iron Hands Forge, after Fulgrim failed to recruit him to the traitor cause. Ferris disarmed Fulgrim, taking the Fireblade and breaking it with his bare metal hands, while Fulgrim took Forgebreaker and used it to knock out his brother and flee. The next time they would see each other, each brother would be wielding the weapons they had made for each other, with Ferris having reforged Fireblade. During the tragic duel, Ferris managed to disarm his brother again, and Fulgrim was forced to use the Lair Blade against his brother, slaying him even as Fireblade was raised in defiance. As a demon Primarch, Fulgrim has since abandoned mortal weapons, instead manifesting the blades of the Phoenician, exquisite demonic weapons capable of slicing through entire squads of elite warriors and war machines alike.
Oh, I didn't know that.
As if one fratricide weren't enough, Fulgrim would later use a poisoned blade to mortally wound Rabute Gilliman at the end of the Scouring, nearly robbing the Imperium of its last great hope. As the Primarch...
Not only that, it looks like he has 2 more arms, so now he has 4 arms. Well, how did that happen? How did he get extra limbs? Oh, okay, anyways, Perturabo. So, I remember in some of the images in the Primarch video that instead, I haven't really seen him like wield any melee weapons. Looks like he was more for like range combat.
Of the Iron Warriors, Perturabo was a living engine.
Oh wait, no, he's holding one right there. God, maybe I'm thinking about someone else.
Of war. His every tactic a calculated equation of destruction. True to his nature, the Lord of the 4th Legion went to battle encased in the Logos, a masterwork suit of Terminator armor of his own design.
Logos.
Based on the Cataphracti pattern, the Logos transformed Perturabo into an unyielding war machine, blending immense durability with advanced command and control systems that allowed him to orchestrate his legion's sieges with cold precision. One of its most formidable features was the Logos Array. This system housed a teleport homer for rapid redeployment and a pair of wrist-mounted shrapnel bolters capable of unleashing thousands of rounds per second, tearing through enemy ranks with ruthless efficiency. It seems that any other melee weapons Perturabo used during the Great Crusade are not mentioned and were likely weapons of convenience until he was gifted the Warhammer Forgebreaker, originally forged by Fulgrim for Ferrus Manus, a cruel twist of fate, or perhaps a calculated insult, as the hammer built in Brotherhood was now wielded in treachery.
So now he has
wielded the White Tiger Dao, a master-crafted power sword styled after the weapons of his homeland. At his side was the Storm's Voice, an ancient pistol gifted to him by the Emperor himself, a relic capable of unleashing devastating arcs of lightning against his foes. But of all his war gear, nothing was more iconic than the Sojutsu pattern Void Bike, a prototype jet bike so massive and powerful that it was officially classified as an ultralight fighter craft. While the Sojutsu predated the scimitar pattern jet bikes favored by his legion, it outperformed them, granting the Khan speed unmatched by any mortal rider, capable of limited atmospheric flight and full...
So it has an armored Imperial Eagle at the front, which is removable, but it looks cool. A centerline heavy bolter mounting, so that thing can shoot right there. I can't read that. Repulsion plates at the bottom. It says, I can't read that first word. But that, and then at the back, there's secondary thruster arrays. Okay. And I'm probably covering it, but it says main propulsion exhaust. So this thing is fast, but I wonder how much fuel it takes.
Fully functional in the void, the Sojutsu was more than just a means of transport. It was a weapon in its own right, and its weapon systems, speed, and capabilities allowed the Khan to do what he did best: hunt the enemies of humanity. Leman Russ wielded two savage melee weapons, the Frost Axe Hellwinter and Mjolnir, a massive frost blade known also as the Sword of Bale Knight. Both were cut from the teeth of the legendary Kraken. But among his weapons, one stood apart: the Dionysian Spear, also called the Spear of Russ, and Gungnir. The Space Wolves lived to give things a lot of names. We don't know what to tell you. The spear was a weapon forged by the Emperor and a gift to Russ. A weapon of strange and unknowable power, it was said to illuminate those it pierced, burning away deception and revealing the truth beneath. The spear possessed a will of its own, always returning to Russ, even though he tried to intentionally lose the weapon more than once. He hated the spear for some time, rejecting its presence in favor of more familiar war gear, until a vision compelled him to drive the spear into his own flesh. Only then did he come to understand its significance and his own role in the fate of the Imperium. When Russ clashed with Horus, he drove the spear into the War Master's corrupted flesh, and for a brief moment the taint of chaos left him. But Russ hesitated, unsure of his destiny, just long enough for Horus to recover. It was a fleeting chance lost to the tides of fate, and the heresy would march on towards its inevitable tragic conclusion. But that's actually not the end of this spear. In the same way that the weapon would often mysteriously find its way back to Russ, his Gungnir would return to the sons of the Wolf Lord on several occasions, helping them to fend off enemies like Magnus the Red and keeping the Space Wolves safe. True to his legion's legendary marksmanship, Dorn was armed with the Voice of Terra, a bolter crafted in the style of the Custodes' own Guardian weapons, but reforged on a larger scale to suit his gigantic hands. Yet for all his skill with ranged firepower, Dorn was at his most effective when using Storm's Teeth, a brutal chainsword forged by the greatest smiths of his homeworld, Inuit, before the Emperor's arrival. With its monstrous teeth, the weapon could tear through flesh, stone, and even ceramite with terrifying ease. Though Dorn was briefly associated with other weapons, such as the Soul Spear, later gifted to the Soul Drinkers chapter, it was Storm's Teeth that remained his preferred instrument of war. It was with this blade that he struck down Alpharius in the desperate fight on Pluto, and when the Siege of Terra reached its climax, it was with Storm's Teeth in hand that he faced Fulgrim in single combat, carving through the masterworked armor of the Demon Primarch. It should be a mark of how loyal Dorn was to his adopted family on Inuit that, unlike many of his brothers, he never favored a weapon given by the Emperor or anyone else over his adopted family's chainblade. Kurz held...
That is really cool, because so far it has been like gifted from the Emperor, gifted from the Emperor, gifted from the Emperor, or as Fulgrim and Farron. Crap. Oh man, I'm not really good with names. I'm sorry, guys. Or like, made weapons and gifted to like a brother that they got attached to. This one, Rogel Dorn, basically, instead of like receiving gifts or accepting gifts, he used a weapon that he already trusted and has a sentimental like a value like instilled into it. So he's like, this thing has got me through like several battles, several difficult moments, so I'm putting my trust in this weapon more than anything you give me. Now for Conrad Kurz, and as we saw, his like dual wielding like Wolverine claws.
Little love for the standard weaponry of the Imperium. In place of a bolt pistol, he wielded the Widowmakers, razor-edged throwing blades designed to maim more than to kill. Yet no weapon defined him more than his infamous lightning claws, mercy and forgiveness. These vicious talons were as much symbols of his identity as they were instruments of slaughter, carving his legend into the annals of history. Like much of the Night Haunter's war gear, his talons were confiscated by Imperial forces, driving his legion to forge duplicates, imitations that Kurz wielded without hesitation until the bitter end. The Angel of Baal went to war with a trinity of relics, each bound to his lineage by blood and destiny. The blade in Carmine, a massive power sword, was the symbol of his martial supremacy, while the Spear of Telesto was a truly legendary artifact, its very essence linked to the genetic heritage of Sanguinius and his sons. The spear possessed a unique ability. It could unleash a blast of energy that would obliterate any unworthy soul who lacked the blood of the angel in their veins. A very useful
Nice.
weapon if you're trying to avoid killing your own soldiers in a packed fight. This sacred
That
relic
is
was lost
insane.
at some point in its history, only to be unearthed by the fallen Archeo, a renegade who believed himself to be the second coming of Sanguinius. He would use the Spear of Telesto against his own brothers during the Blood Angels' civil war, before it was ultimately reclaimed. Lastly, Sanguinius carried the Moonsilver Blade, a weapon that was
Moonsilver
rarely
Blade.
drawn yet invaluable when facing the unnatural horrors of the warp. Forged from the same sacred alloy as the Imperial Fist's mighty phalanx Star Fort, the Moonsilver Blade was a gift from Rogel Dorn himself, a token of the strong bond between the two Primarchs. Against demons, its edge was said to burn with a cold celestial fire, a weapon of purity for the Emperor's most angelic son. Of all Primarchs, Ferrus Manus was perhaps the
really
greatest
cool.
smith, his mastery rivaled only by his brother Fulgrim and Vulcan.
There's
But
the
more
Forge
than
Breaker.
any of the Primarchs, Ferrus was a
But I wonder if he's gonna talk about the blasters on his back.
walking arsenal, a weapon from head to toe. And that starts with his hands. The living metal that encased his forearms was a gift, or a curse,
Oh, that's right.
given to him after a battle with a monstrous construct that met its end being held under molten rock by a young Manus until it melted away. The act forever marked Ferrus with the gleaming metal limbs that would give him his name. And like we said, that was just the start. Like with Perturabo, Ferrus made his own armor, the Medusan Carapace, into yet another weapon. His constant fine-tuning of this armor ended up contributing to the design of the Cataphracti Terminator suits. Of course, he saved the best upgrades for himself. The most infamous was the suit's integrated arsenal, a staggering array of servo arms bristling with destructive potential, such as rapid-fire grenade launchers and cannons that could tear enemies apart by warping gravity itself. Despite this, his most
That's
iconic
crazy.
weapon was not one of his own making. Instead, it was gifted to him by Fulgrim following a contest to determine which of them was the superior craftsman. That weapon was Forgebreaker, a thunderhammer of staggering power, a masterwork unlike any other. Ferrus Manus wielded it throughout the Great Crusade, a testament to his brotherhood with Fulgrim, until that same brother used it in their duel at Eastfen 5. If any Primarch could fill a museum with the weapons he has wielded, it would be Angron. By Nucarian tradition, a warrior binds their weapons to their forearms, never using
Dual
them again should
hatchets.
they break or fall to the ground. Yet among the countless tools of carnage he has used, two remain legendary: Gorefather and Gore.
The chains around his wrists and having it attached to like these dual wielding like hatchets, like chainsaw hatchets, or axes, whatever you want to call them, kind of reminds me of like Kratos from God of War, because you know, like Kratos has the Chaos Blades and they're chained to his arms, but he managed to break that oath when he killed Ares. So it just kind of reminds me of that. There's so many parallels with like every single Primarch. Lehman Russ like having a parallel with Vikings, like Norse mythology and things like that. And I mean, it's just really cool because I'm just like picking out like parallels of like here and there in the Warhammer 40K universe.
Child, a pair of vicious chain axes whose teeth were taken from a mica dragon and could cleave through armor like air.
Oh, those
they
are
were
teeth.
damaged when Angron used them to cut out of a fallen building, and while Gorefather lay abandoned, Gorechild was recovered by Karn the Betrayer, who still uses it to this day. Angron has since taken up many other weapons, even in his ascension to demonhood. The Demon Primarch now wields a massive chain axe known as Spine Grinder, a gift given by
Spine
Dark
Grinder?
Mechanicum priests of Perjax, repaid by a swift and bloody death at Angron.
Let's see. Dark Mechanicum. A splinter faction from the Adeptus Mechanicus. They are affiliated with Chaos and can be traced back to those who pledged to Horus at the end of the Great Crusade, a dark counterpart to the mainstream Mechanicus. Oh, so there's a darker faction of the Adeptus Mechanicus. I didn't know that. Oh, I mean, I'm not surprised because there's like, you know, Chaos Space Marines, there's Primarchs that fell to the heresy and all that, so not that surprised, but just never heard of them.
Hands for the crime of not shedding blood in the name of Khorne. His second weapon, Seminarius, has an even darker story.
Seminarius.
It was once a Slaneshi demon, a self-proclaimed gladiatorial master who loved to boast of its skill. Enraged by the claim, Angron answered with the only language he knew, violence. With a massive iron bar, he bludgeoned the demon into submission, and in its final moments, he bound it to that crude weapon, creating a twisted blade of unparalleled brutality. Among all the Primarchs, Rabute Guilliman has what is probably the most unique armory. During the Great Crusade and the Horus Heresy, he carried many weapons, but none were as long-lasting as the Hand of Dominion, a masterwork power fist that remains his favored tool of war even after his resurrection.
That's new.
Unlike a standard power fist, the Hand of Dominion boasts an underslung bolter, making this symbol of authority a very clear precursor to the Gauntlets of Ultramar, which would be used by future chapter masters of the Ultramarines. He also used to hold the Gladius Incandor, a blade lost during his infamous duel with Fulgrim. Once resurrected, he needed a replacement, and Guilliman was granted the Emperor's own sword, a weapon of such divine potency that it could annihilate armies and, more crucially, was among the few instruments capable of permanently destroying demons. Its flames are not a physical trait like Fulgrim's Fireblade, they are a manifestation of the Emperor's own psychic might. Though Guilliman himself lacks the strength to fuel it, the fire still burns, powered by the undying will of the Master of Mankind. The most iconic of all Mortarion's weapons is Silence, the towering two-handed war scythe that has become a symbol of plague and despair.
Looks like the
Inside
Grim Reaper.
Its hilt is a bound demon, its putrid essence turning every sweep of the blade into a new vector for infection, as the very air Silence cleaves through spreads diseases capable of rotting lungs and blackening flesh.
Well, I mean, that is pretty fitting considering the fact that he landed on a planet that was like thick with severe, like a hostile poison. But what I find interesting is the weapons most of the Primarchs are wielding either the blades are encased with like fire, or it holds the soul of a demon.
His sidearm, the energy pistol known as Lantern, has an origin as unusual as its wielder. Once the weapon of a slain cult leader, it was claimed by the Emperor himself from the field of battle. When Mortarion joined the Crusade, his father offered him a beautiful power sword, but Mortarion, ever defiant, rejected the sword and instead chose Lantern from the Imperial vaults. A powerful energy weapon, Mortarion often chose to use it to disintegrate his enemies when he deemed them unworthy of his giant scythe. And that has not changed much in the 42nd millennium, a potent and blinding message to the foes of the Death Lord. Among the warlords of the Great Crusade, none wielded power like Magnus the Red. While his brothers fought with blade and bolter, Magnus fought with the warp itself. Only the Emperor surpassed him in psychic might, and so even though his mind was his greatest weapon, he still used more mundane weaponry.
And he's missing an eye.
For most of his time in the Great Crusade, Magnus wielded the Blade of An-Nunrata. The weapon was forged in honor of a myth from Prospero, his doomed homeworld. It was a relic of his loyalist days, a symbol of his station, but when his fate was bound to the ruinous powers, the weapon was remade, now known as the Blade of Magnus. It is a demon-forged thing, a blade that shifts and reshapes itself in response to whatever Magnus wants at the time. Every Primarch is a living weapon, but Magnus took that idea much further, focusing on his abilities rather than what he could hold in his hands, which makes discussion of his weaponry easier, if nothing else. Horus Lupercal preferred to use weapons that showcased his raw power, like Worldbreaker, a thunderous power maul capable of destroying even Night Titans with a single blow. Forged by the Emperor's own hand and given to Horus when he was named War Master, it was a weapon fit for the greatest general of the Imperium. But when Horus fell, so did Worldbreaker. Shattered when the Emperor killed him on his ship, its fragments reforged into lesser relics scattered across the galaxy. Yet one weapon of his name has managed to survive, the Talon of Horus. A relic of the Dark Age of technology, this monstrous lightning claw included an integrated combi bolter. It was this Talon that Horus used to end Sanguinius, his most beloved brother, and wounded the Emperor himself in their titanic duel aboard the Vengeful Spirit. When Horus's body was reclaimed by his men, the Talon was given to Abaddon the Despoiler, who has made gruesome use of it ever since. It was the same weapon that slew Sigismund, the first Emperor's champion, and spilled the blood of 1,000 other warlords and heroes.
Not only that, it looks like he made some adjustments to it, like, because when Horus wielded it, it looked like it was just a talon, but now he got it. He added he added a blaster to it too.
A weapon of betrayal and legend, the Talon of Horus remains a black mark upon history, a reminder of the War Master's fall and the nightmare that followed. As both a weapon and a symbol of office,
Here we go,
the Primarch of
Logar.
the Word Bearers carried the ornate Illuminarum, a power maul forged by Ferrus Manus, who seems to have outfitted almost all of his brothers at one point or another. The hammer had been gifted to Lorgar as a
Well, to be fair, Ferris was adopted by a blacksmith, so I'm not surprised.
symbol of cooperation, which makes its eventual use in destroying some of the Imperium's greatest champions a bit rude, if nothing else. While Lorgar saw the weapon as a symbol rather than an instrument of destruction, those who found themselves on its receiving end would likely disagree. His secondary weapon, an ancient pistol known as Devotion, was more cruel than most Drakari weapons, which is saying something. Capable of unleashing a gravitic field upon its target, it didn't just kill, it crushed foes beneath their own weight. An execution
Whoa.
style that weirdly worked well with the weapon's name, considering how both the Imperium and the Forces of Chaos
That's
would
crazy.
make use of religion in the millennia to follow. The great smith of Nocturne, Vulcan, was nearly unmatched in the art of the forge, crafting weapons and artifacts of unrivaled power. As the Primarch of the Salamanders, he had access to countless masterworks throughout his lifetime, many of which he personally destroyed to prevent them from falling into the wrong hands. Yet a chosen few were spared at the request of Tekel, the first Forge Father of the Salamanders.
Did I say Ferris was adopted by the blacksmith? Oh crap. I don't think it was Ferris. I think it was Vulcan. Okay, now you guys understand why I'm not that good with names. I mean, I remember the stories from the Primarch video. In my defense, guys, I watched that video yesterday. So some of the details may have got a little mixed up, but I think it was him. So please disregard what I said about Farron. I'm really sorry. Ferris.
Vulcan made frequent use of the Furnace's Heart, an energy blade forged by his brother Ferrus Manus.
Furnace's
That
Heart.
man really couldn't stop himself from giving out weapons. Though not one of his artifacts, Vulcan wielded the sword as a tribute to his brother. He also had the Gauntlet of the Forge, an
Mark, a gauntlet of the forge. Mark of the Forge Father is shaped barehanded from molten adamantium. Wait, is adamantium? Is it really the same adamantium like in Marvel, like with Wolverine, or is it just like have the same name? Promethium pump with shielded fuel coils. Okay. Balefire ignition light for hotter, faster burning flame. And mag shielded heavy flame muzzle.
immense power gauntlet housing a heavy flamer capable of reducing foes to molten slag with a single burst. The gauntlet was worked into his armor, so he was never caught without at least one weapon. But Vulcan's most iconic instrument of war was the Warhammer Dawnbringer, which was able to strike with
Dawnbringer.
apocalyptic force. Originally designed as a teleportation device, it was also, as previously mentioned, a powerful warhammer, a fact that Conrad Kurz somehow overlooked while he held Vulcan prisoner. The salamander reminded his brother of the fact very painfully before using it.
Conrad could have used it.
Today, the salamanders revere the weapons saved by Tekel as the 9 artifacts of Vulcan. These relics serve as more than just war gear, they are sacred relics held in the hope that one day they will guide the chapter to their lost Primarch. Corvus Corax was the Emperor's foremost master of swift execution strikes and guerrilla warfare. His
He's dual
arsenal
wielding.
was collectively known as the Panoply of the Raven Lord, a suite of deadly weapons befitting the Emperor's stealthiest boy. Among them was an energized whip, a creation of the Mechanicum's finest artisans,
Oh,
and a
that's
pair
cool.
of ancient pistols, Wrath and Justice, whose precise
and Justice.
high-impact shots could tear through ceramite armor like paper. But most fearsome of all were the Raven's talons, his signature lightning claws, whose monomolecular edges could slice through the strongest armor. Legends claim that their blades were unbreakable. In the wake of the heresy, Corax underwent a transformation very similar to some of his traitorous
Ooh.
brothers. Consumed by vengeance, he vanished into the warp, emerging as something far more terrifying than the warrior he had once been. No longer bound by the rules of the material universe, the Primarch became a living nightmare, a demonic raven creature whose form was a writhing mass of talons and beaks, a whirling shadow of death. Stripped of the need for weapons or armor, he now hunts his traitor kin within the depths of the warp, appearing from nothingness to rip apart entire squads of heretic Astartes before vanishing once more. He has become the darkness that traitors fear, a Dark Knight. Sorry, we couldn't resist. The enigmatic twins of the Alpha Legion, if indeed there were two of them, remain the most elusive of the Emperor's sons. Whether Alpharius and Omegon were truly separate beings or facets of a grand deception remains one of the Imperium's greatest mysteries. The secrecy extended to their war gear, making it nearly impossible to pinpoint which weapons or armor definitively belonged to them. Their entire legion operated as an extension of their deception, with its warriors often claiming to be
cool.
Alpharius themselves, rendering any first-hand accounts unreliable. Confusing matters even more, the twins, along with many of their officers, were known to use the Hydra's Spite, a rare plasma weapon that defied the common failings of normal Imperial plasma weapons, never overheating or misfiring like its simpler counterparts. One weapon, however, is recorded with certainty: the Pale Spear. This strange and possibly Xenos-forged weapon was as much an enigma as the Primarchs themselves, capable of splitting into multiple segments and phasing in and out of existence. Anyone struck by it would be left with bloodless wounds surrounded by strange smokeless vapors, their bodies dissolving as though erased from reality itself. It was this spear that Alpharius carried to his final battle against Rogel Dorn, before being very messily dispatched by the Praetorian's blade Storm's Teeth. Or at least, that's the story. But with the Alpha Legion, the truth is never so simple. Each Primarch's war gear wasn't just a tool, it was a symbol of who they were, a legacy forged in battle. Some of these relics were lost to time. Others still see use, and a few continue to shape the fate of the galaxy. But which of these legendary weapons or armor pieces do you think best represents its Primarch? Let us know in the comments. We have already covered the identity and incredible feats of the Sons of the Emperor in an earlier video, so if you hunger for more tales of war, betrayal, and legend, make sure you're ready. Subscribe, drop a like, and ring the bell so that you can always find yourself armed and armored with more lore.
That was a great video, and I'm really happy I watched it after the Primarch explained video, but I just want to say, guys, I do apologize for saying some incorrect stuff, so please don't come at me for that. I'm still learning. But to answer his question, which weapon? I don't know. I mean, every single one is really cool. Like, it really represents them. Like, you know, Forge Breaker and the spears. Crap, I forgot what it was called. Many of them are like spears, swords, chain blades, and like big talons and claws, and every single one of them looks really cool. But I'm gonna be a little bit biased on this, and I'm gonna go with the lion sword. One, because it glows blue like a lightsaber, and like I said, I really like Lion L. Johnson. And on top of that, his shield as well. The fact that it's the Emperor's personal shield as well, and the Lion is the best fighter. Come on. So my question, and I'm gonna put it in the comments as well, which weapon is your favorite? Like, if you had the chance to wield one of these weapons, what would it be? Please let me know in the comments. And also, if you guys haven't already seen the every Primarch explained video, please check that out. And also on top of that, which Primarch is your favorite? I really like to hear your guys' thoughts. But besides that, that's all I got for today. So thank you guys for tuning in. Thank you guys for watching. Hit that notification bell so you know when I drop another video. And also shout out to all my members, subscribers, viewers. You guys are amazing. Thank you so much for your support, guys. I really do appreciate it. So without anything else, see you guys next time.